come down here to see what it looked like firsthand. It was pretty chaotic at times last night. From the video I can see, I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see what I can see. There's a hole in that window over there, but it doesn't look like anybody went inside. Up at the Sharif's, you can see a lot of damage there, and it looks like there was looting there. As this was ramping out and we saw the protests in Minneapolis, it felt like, in a way, it was not inevitable, but you could see it spreading throughout the country. And obviously Minneapolis was the most profound, but you could see that there was a high level of anger throughout the country. It wasn't just in Minneapolis. It was, obviously you saw Oakland, you saw Los Angeles, you saw Houston, you saw Dallas. These are people that have felt like they've been stepped on for a long time, and that anger was simmering. I'm going to turn the camera around and show you this Sharif's here, then I'm going to tell you a story. Oh, so here we go. Here is Sharif's Jewelers. You can see that it's mostly empty now, save for a few plants. You can see glass still here, doors broken into. And part of me, as I saw the looters in other places, felt like, well, you know, that's just stuff. That's just stuff, and their insurance is going to cover it. And to a large degree, I still feel that way. It is just stuff, but it's certainly gotta suck if you're Sharif. And it was a little bit more of a gut punch when I actually know the people that got looted. Sharif is a good dude. He donates to Access Sacramento every year, and to a place called Sacramento. So it certainly a bummer to have gone through this pandemic and your livelihood barely on the line, and then to have another setback like this would be totally disheartening. In any case, definitely a bad situation, but a lot of the businesses are fine. A lot of these ones have roll cages that block the doors all the time, but you saw, at least what I saw from video, was a mixed bag. You had people that wanted to do damage, try to stop them from doing damage, and it makes for a very chaotic situation. All right, quick story. So I was student body president of my high school, Casa Roble, in Orangevale. I also had what I thought was a sense of humor, so I planned a senior prank. And the plan was to stack picnic tables on the roof. And to do that, I figured I needed like a crew of like 6 to 10 people. And I was struggling to get this crew together, but I heard there was a party, so I figured out where the party was, and I went to the party, and I rounded up some friends to participate in this. Well, as it turned out, I got the friends and about 20 other people that were there, and some of them were maybe a little drunk, and they all came out to the school to help do this thing. And while I had my crew of like 6 to 8 people doing the picnic table, some people that came with us decided to start breaking into lockers and causing mayhem. Somebody ended up breaking a window into an administration office, and eventually it all came out. Good friend Randy Van Duzen, who is now a cop, told on us, and I got called to the principal's office, and had to explain the situation. So I'm telling you this story because sometimes when you plan a protest, you get people there that have a different agenda than what you have. And we've seen from Minneapolis, there seems to be, at least in one case there, a law enforcement officer that went in undercover to break windows of the auto zone. Go find that video if you haven't seen that already. But in this case, you had a full day of protest, and then nightfall comes, and I don't know if it's the same people or different people or what happened. I was out there for a few hours yesterday when they took over the freeway. I decided to leave, and I was fearful what was going to happen overnight, and what happens in these situations often did happen. You even saw during the protest when a guy went and he spray painted on a wall. Like half of the group was like cringing, like, oh shit, don't do that, and half of them people were like, yay. So it's very tough to get any group like this on a plan or an agenda or to get a game plan together, and seldom is there any type of work like that. I got there yesterday and I pull over, and I've got my megaphone in my car because I have a megaphone for Burning Man. And I know it's the loudest megaphone that would have been out here, and I think they would have communicated a lot better, but there was no way I was going to take the megaphone out because I would either lose it to somebody else or I would have been in charge in a few minutes. So I left the megaphone behind, but they don't have basic communication tools. There was no like conversation about follow-up. There was no clipboard about getting people on board for a political movement. It was all rage and no kind of organization. The other point I wanted to make is that almost everybody there was 30 and under. All of the old hats took this off. And it's not to say that you could formulate a game plan and a protest that makes sense, but there were no old heads involved. The old heads were home and maybe fretting, hoping that this won't go down like it did, but it did. And I think that there needs to be a bridge between these young Black Lives Matter people and the old heads that carried the torch during earlier civil rights efforts. Unfortunately, there's not a bridge there, and the young people don't have a lot of organization or planning, and it's a lot of energy without organization. I'm going to show you we're at the Rite Aid here. This was also broken into. I think we got two workers here that are, you guys work here? No? I don't know. Yeah, workers here that are, I guess, protecting the building until they can get it all patched up, but the Rite Aid was broken into as well. You can see some graffiti down that way. When I drove through, I did see that there are still CHP ringing the Capitol and are trying to protect that at all costs. Less presence now. Riot gear is off as they're kind of resting at this point, but they still seem to be staged and ready for that. So here's an interesting question. Could this have been prevented? What could have been done? And I saw a friend of mine, Malik, pointed out that the mayor of Detroit, I think, took a knee with protesters and joined them and tried to diffuse the protests. That way you saw Mayor London, what's the name? Bottoms in Atlanta, telling the protesters to go home and trying to get T.I. and Killer Mike involved in making those requests. It's a tough thing to do, to tell young home that we got this handled and that the protest isn't needed because they've seen the results of their previous protests and been found wanting. people have pointed out that George Floyd did not in Sacramento. Here's some cardboard boxes from some looting probably here. Justice Now. So you got boxes from looting strewn across the area there. Not sure where all of that came from. 24-hour fitness seems to be fine. Sauced, fine. We see some graffiti here on the Doko, and we'll go check out Piglet here in a second. We see Save the Kids spray painted on the Starbucks there. Looks like they got the T-Mobile. So looks like T-Mobile will be putting in a insurance claim. I don't know if I could have handled the stress of being out here while all this was going on, trying to police people. It's a very difficult position to be in, to try to police a protest, because you've got a mix of people there that all have different ideas about tactics and what to do. And what you don't want in a protest is a lot of arguing and infighting about what you should be doing. Ideally, you'd have some solidarity. Ideally, you'd have a plan. Ideally, you'd have an agenda afterwards. But things don't often happen in ideal ways. I like the social distancing feet here out in front of the Haagen-Dazs. They look fine. Overall, less destruction than I expected. I thought these planters might have been all turned over, and here's one flower that got uprooted. Little graffiti there. Shouldn't have left that. They probably could dust that for prints. Anyways, we're going to go see Piglet, see how it turned out with some modifications made to it. See Elizabeth here. Bradley is on. I've spent a fair amount of time following the protests with the Stefan Clark protests, and it's always been interesting to me the tactics of the police in those situations, and how much resistance do you give versus how much you pull back and let the situation play out rather than causing a disturbance or a fight. In this case, it seems like they largely decided to pull back under the direction of Chief Hahn and Sheriff Steinberg. And I think that probably is the right call, but I'm not an expert. Here we are at the Piglet. ACAB.
What's that mean?
I don't know. No.
No,
All right, ACAB. Anybody got an interpretation of what that means? Let us know. But this is the $7 million piece of art that was built in front of the Downtown Commons, or Doko Golden One Center. Very controversial, built by, what's that guy's name? I'm forgetting his name right now. County jail got shut, got the windows broke out. That would be hard to do. Here's the juice pressery. Got some damage here. Don't know how much product was inside, but it doesn't look like there's anybody here to board it up quite yet. Oh, it's ACBC. All cops are bad cops. All right. Hey, Johan from Sweden's on. Good morning. If you're just joining us, this is Sacramento, California, where the protest turned into a scavenging / looting. And I understand a lot of things were taken from this Macy's. So let's go over here, take a look, see some hangers. How you doing? Hi.
You work here?
No.
Oh. You come to see the craziness, huh?
You come and see the craziness, yeah.
Wow.
You still get the alarm is still going here, doors still cracked open.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine being the manager? The store was already temporarily closed. The store you might be losing your job already, and now you've got a looted store. I'm live on Facebook, by the way, just in case you.
Look at this. Wow, what are they gonna do?
Tell the insurance company.
Yeah, what's the damage though? Probably gonna do that one.
Yeah, I mean, but that's why you pay an insurance company a lot of money.
Look, there's a bat. Somebody had a bat. Right here.
Oh,
It's a bat.
yeah, that's the bat they probably
That's how
used
they
to
did
get
it.
in there.
It's a bat.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy that it's just here like this still. Oh, sorry, I should put my mask on.
Yeah.
That was rude. All right, so
Manager at?
laid off probably?
That one probably?
Laid off? She was asking where the manager is, and I said probably laid off. Anyone need a shoe here? $69 for this nice pump. One of the things that typically happens in a situation like this is that there would be a official protest, and the quote unquote leaders of the community would come together and try to make change and to lay out an agenda to achieve their goals. Haven't seen any of that yet. This has all been young people venting their anger and frustration. I've never actually been up here. I don't know if this is just a door or if it's broken into, or these homeless guys are just probably sleeping up there. They didn't go in that way. The problem is that whenever we have leaders, they are you can see that some peel out marks here. Somebody was doing some donuts in the roadway here. We're now on L Street in downtown Sacramento, outside of the downtown Commons Doco. If you've never seen it here, you're now looking at some of the art that accompanies the Doco. This art here is from a local artist, Gail Hart. I was not out there last night. I was out during the day, and then it was turning into, seemed like it was going to be a long skirmish, and I don't know. I don't really know what my role is, so I go home when I'm not feeling useful. A lot of anger at law enforcement. I would say that our police chief, Chief Hahn, has done a great job since he's been here. But there's a lot of pent up bad apples within the system, and that the system, from police to the courts to the jail, the whole law enforcement mechanism, is such that they believe in protecting themselves more than they believe in protecting the people. And the laws around use of force are so tilted in the favor of law enforcement that it's nearly impossible to get a conviction. So you can see some of the names of other African Americans that have died at the hands of law enforcement in sketchy at best situations. The living wall on Doko is looking kind of nice. It's on the upside. All of this art outside Doko, they must have contemplated like how they would clean it up once it gets defaced, but I'm sure it's not fun for the artist. Well, maybe we should get another check to come out and clean it up. It's also got a crack in it, so I hope nobody jumped on it or anything. Hey Rick, hey Jessica. This is a new boutique hotel that's supposed to be opening next to the Doko that's under construction. I think it's going to be called the Continental. I'm curious of what the experts will say about whether or not this was preventable, or things could have been done to prevent it after Minneapolis. Obviously, there's lots of things that could have been done a long time ago to listen to the people a little bit more, and to adjust the criminal justice system to protect black and brown people better. Saw a nice editorial today about Kaepernick and taking a knee, and how the NFL establishment / Trump not only wanted to blow that off, but took the man's job because he got too loud and he asked for too much. And that interrupted the solemn singing of the national anthem. Obviously that's complete bullshit. But the problems that he was trying to tell you about existed, and you wanted to smush it over, and things like that don't get smushed. The wage inequality and pain, anger, fear, these things build up. And not saying anything is justified, but I'm saying things build up. And when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, people will do something. Here we've got Frank Fats. Seems to be busted up here pretty good. Nobody here to board it up quite yet. Paint? What? Oh, I didn't do it. What? Okay. The bank. You guys telling me about the bank. A lot of destruction here. If you're old school Sacramento, you might remember this building, 815L. That was like one of the top dance spots for a long time in Sacramento. Frank Fats, one of the leading Asian restaurateurs in Sacramento. How did it get too loud? Right, just taking a knee. Wanting to take a silent act to communicate your frustration and disillusionment with the system was too much of a distraction for the NFL owners. And they needed to stand up. You can force an NFL player to stand up, but you can't force a city to take it for too long. Now, I'm sure that most of the destruction is probably done by a handful of people, and a lot of other people were just there, and it makes it very complicating. Here's another building. The archives building has some graffiti on it, so I'm going to pull by there, and then maybe I'll be done. We'll see.
This cannot be out. This belongs to them. But I need someone to verify you. I did not do this shit.
You didn't do this shit. I got it on tape. You didn't do it. You see some graffiti here again on the ground. Love to hear your thoughts or comments about what we could have done to prevent these riots, either what we could have done before Minneapolis or post Minneapolis. But these are issues that have been brewing for a long time. Greg asks, is there any police presence down here now? There is no Sacramento PD presence that I've seen. The CHP are still surrounding the Capitol. And again, mostly the CHP, that's what they do. They protect the state assets, and their highest priority is the Capitol, and really no presence elsewhere. Early on in the Stephon Clark protests, you would see cops out there trying to influence their direction or the movement, and more they just kind of pulled away and to try to give them less of an opportunity to get into a verbal conflict. But they were out last night, and I understand that a young boy was shot in the face with a rubber bullet. So it was not peaceful here. All right, so we see some new interpretation of Supreme Court Justice Stanley Mosk. Is he in blackface? I don't know. You can say that that is craven, which is deplorable, but it's going to get a lot of images around the world, and well, that's interesting. Wonder how long it will take them to clean this up. We'll see. What's the point of a protest? The point of protest is to be seen and to have your message heard by as many people as possible. And in some ways, people would argue that a graffiti or destruction like that helps the cause. Of course, others would argue that you are perverting the cause when you create this violence and property damage or physical damage to people. So here is the presence at our beautiful state capitol. The maybe less than half of what number of officers that were there during the protest during the day. Most of them have their riot gear off at this point, and their face shields and masks off, but they were wearing those yesterday during the deal, and I'm sure they are close by, and more are resting somewhere else. I'm sure this is costing a lot of money in overtime to have this many deputies standing around waiting to protect assets. From what I understand, there was another protest planned at Cesar Chavez today. Don't know who is the organizer of that or whether that will be entirely peaceful. Try to do some research on your own if you're planning on going out there, but you've got to behave somewhat with the group, but also on your own cognizance and use your own moral judgment in these situations. I saw a lot of people out there trying to be a force for good and to prevent the looters and people, the vandalism and the bad acts. I saw on video young people putting out a fire. Yeah, doing a Facebook Live. Just kind of a tour of what's going on in the morning after. Did they ever try to seriously rush the Capitol, or are they mostly just hanging around? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was watching some video last night, and I guess they did some looting around K Street stuff. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. So those guys are pretty chill. You will see during the protest, people will jaw at them and will try to tell them that they're on the wrong side of history and that they should put down their shield and join them. The officers generally in those situations are trained not to say anything or not to smile, not to react. There you go, more of them hanging out. Can be very difficult. You will also see them occasionally encourage their white allies to go to the front and to be there, and I guess they think it would defuse the situation and make them less likely to get beat up by the cops if there are white people in the front row. But I hope everybody finds a way to speak up for social justice in some way, shape, or form. The young people out in the streets need more organization, but their cause is righteous. Overall, less destruction than I expected. Some graffiti, some windows broken out, the Macy's looted, but by and large, it seems like it's just stuff that was damaged. The original sin and the inciting incident remains, and people are incensed about that, but also incensed about all the other examples of cases where either there wasn't as much video or there was video, and eventually, after a long process, the prosecutors decide not to prosecute, or there's not a conviction, and that the system is too far tilted in the favor of the police, that if they say that I felt my life was in danger, so I took action and shot him. Of course, this is different. This is a case where the threat was neutralized, and he decided to kneel on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. And 2 minutes after, he was unresponsive. But there are hundreds or thousands of cases where there is less compelling video, but nonetheless, black and brown lives have been smushed out, and justice has been hard to find. All right, I'm pretty much toured what I could find in terms of the damage or destruction from the riots last night. I encourage you to talk among your friends about what we can do to support racial justice in America, what you're willing to do, whether that's paying money to a cause or going to vote or signing a petition. We need more accountability among police departments, and their systems need to be weighted fairly so that when bad cops act bad, they can be punished, not hidden from persecution or punishment and allowed to do it again. Rioting is never justified and doesn't make sense, but I understand the anger and frustration going on out there in the black community. And here's my hope that America will respond in a positive direction from this, and we can begin to live out our ideals more closely. All men are created equal. All right. Thanks, everybody.